Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, two blokes chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Hey, I'm going to do the introduction this time because this one is someone I know.
It is indeed.
There's an outfit called the Regional Leadership Australia. That's what the group's called, and their CEO is Katrina Baddeley, but she likes being called Kat. Good morning, Kat.
Hi, Neil. How you going?
Oh, always better when I'm talking to you. Are you well, and are you happy to be nice and brisk up your way this morning, I would have thought?
Very well, very happy. Not too bad here in Ballarat. It's just got a little bit overcast. So
Ballarat?
A bit sunny before.
Oh, the second coldest place on the planet.
Yes, I went to the second coldest place on the planet last week and then went on to Daylesford, so I reckon I got the quinella. So we have an audience who is all agog with anticipation because they're going to find out what Regional Leadership Australia is. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so we, probably the best way to describe us is we act as a peak body for community leadership programs across, primarily at the moment, rural and regional Victoria, but our growth strategy is to help other states and territory establish community leadership programs in their rural and regional communities. And we also offer an opportunity for alumni of these programs to connect and collaborate and share and continue their leadership journey. So I guess the best way to sum it up is we really help regional Australians to build leadership capacity in themselves and their communities.
Kat, without wanting to sound like you know everything about everything, would you describe yourself as a good leader or just a good teacher of leadership?
Oh, that's a really good question, Rob. Look, I don't know whether I could describe myself as the best leader in the world. I think leadership is all about learning and growing as you continue your journey. So you're never fully, 100% strong on leadership. So I think part of leadership is reflecting and learning and growing. So I guess the best way to sum that up is to say, I'm good, but I can always get better.
In these funny times we're living where it's pretty clear that there is a variety of leadership styles around the world, even with this coronavirus pandemic, do you find yourself assessing situations critically and saying, oh, I wouldn't have done that, or I would have done that a little bit differently, or oh, he's done the wrong thing there, or she's done the right thing there? Anything pop up like that? Do you find yourself a critiquer?
Yeah, most definitely. I think when you're in that leadership space, you're always looking at ways leaders, particularly on the political scene, present themselves. And look, love or hate politicians, I think our politicians across Australia have really done a fabulous job as far as containing the COVID crisis. We may not agree with everything they've done, but they've stuck to their guns, and I think that's paying dividends now. So we do critique them. I think that's human nature.
So thinking about the regional leadership, it used to be called something different, didn't it? The Victorian Community Regional Leadership Program. How did I do?
Yeah, close. It had a very long name. In fact, legally we still are that name at the moment. We're the Victorian Regional Community Leadership Program Secretariat Incorporated. So hence the name change, and hence we want to be able to obviously offer what we do to other states.
Yeah, that was screaming out for a name change, wasn't it, Kat?
It certainly was. It was very difficult for people to get their heads around. So
and I got the 5 words. I just got them out of order. That's all.
It
wasn't too bad.
It did limit us to only being based in Victoria, and we really feel we've got the expertise to help other states and territories establish their own community leadership programs in their own regions.
Because I think one of the things you mentioned earlier, and I can't remember whether you did or whether we talked about this before ourselves, but you don't run the programs yourself. You are a facilitator. You are an encourager, I would have thought is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, no, I don't. In Victoria, there are 10 community leadership programs. Collectively, they've got probably 150 years of experience, and regional leadership's only been in existence for 7 years. So we were really primarily set up to be a facilitator to enable those programs to connect and to share and collaborate and to grow. And we also played a key role in advocating, which we still do, advocating for sponsorship and funding, both state, federally and through corporates, and looking for opportunities for scholarships for participants to be able to for people to be able to participate in our program. So
we might touch back on sponsorship and stuff shortly, but we obviously have a particular interest in Geelong. I'm assuming one of the groups is based around Geelong. How far does it stretch?
Yep, so Leaders for Geelong, which is auspiced by the Committee for Geelong. So it primarily stretches obviously all of the region of Geelong and down to Queenscliff, Torquay, Anglesey, sort of that areas would reach into Colac as well. So quite a big stretch.
And this is aimed at a particular age group. He said, leading the questioning in the direction you wanted to go. Can anyone join, or is this something that is only for younger folk who are coming on the up and up?
Yeah, no. So anyone can join. We've had people as old as, I don't want to put them in an age bracket, but we've had people in their late 60s who have, got to that stage.
What, Rob's age?
Yeah, there's hope for me yet.
Got to that stage where they're transitioning to retirement and they're looking at ways in which they can give back to the community, and community leadership programs is a good way to get your foot in the door as far as, strengthening your own leadership capacity, but building a group of networks that you may not have come across in the past. And a key deliverable of all of the programs is to develop and implement a community project, and that's really reinforces the learnings that they've had across that year. So, so we don't have an age barrier. I think it's fair to say we very rarely would have someone under 18 because of the guardianship things, but we've had programs specifically for the youth that's run separately to our flagship program.
So suppose I'm a 40-year-old and I'm living in the town of, let's pluck a town out of the air that
Anglesey.
we like. Anglesey, there we go. Good morning to the folk of Anglesey. I'm a 40-year-old in Anglesey, and I tell you what, this program looks good, leadership. What happens? What do I do? What's expected of me? What does it cost me? All those sorts of things.
Yeah, good question. So
Thank you.
each of the programs are different, but given you've used Geelong as an example, Geelong's program at the moment goes for about 18 months. It's our longest program. Most of them go for 10 months.
Slow learners.
And they recruit, all of the programs have a recruiting process. So think of it similar to being recruited for a job. You have to fill in an application form. There are interview processes that are taken, and there are reference checks. And then part of the interview panel looks at the diversity of the potential participants. So one of the strengths of all of the programs is to ensure that we have each cohort going through is as representative of the region as we can. So we have certainly gender diversity, we have ethnic or cultural background diversity, we have diversity in their experiences, their age, and their work and life experiences as well. So once the interview process has been completed, if you are successful, then you are offered a place in the program. Now, the prices do vary. So we obviously look for, where we can, scholarships. So we look for organisations who can provide scholarships, particularly for those who may be volunteers and so don't have an employer who could pay their participation fee, or they might be a small business and again don't necessarily have the funds to fund a place in the programs. And they are heavily subsidised by the funding that we get. We are funded quite a bit by state government, and we thank them for that, and hopefully they will continue to fund us and make an announcement in the October budget that we're being funded again. And so most of the programs do request the participants to have a little bit of skin in the game themselves. So there's a little bit of out-of-pocket expense they have to put up. It might be $100, $150, which is quite reasonable to do a 10-month, 18-month program. And the cost varies. So I guess if you averaged it, the program costs about $6,000. The real cost is anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000. So you can appreciate why we need to have sponsors on board to help us with keep the costs down. So.
Kat, you may have already touched on the answer when you mentioned a pre-program interview, but getting back to the self-assessment of yourself as a leader, is leadership like any other basic skill? Like I have a desire to play AFL football, but I can't due to a lack of ability to do it. How much of a good leader comes from a natural character as opposed to what you can polish onto them during this process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think everyone inherently has leadership skills to some degree. What we find is those who tend to join our programs have a real passion for doing something good within their own communities, and that's that kind of driving force of being able to proactively lead in their communities to make it a better place in the end. So what we tend to do is, in fact, we find the best people who come out of the programs who get those real aha moments are those who are not in formal leadership roles, because they may have been, those informal leadership roles are probably ingrained in their own corporate cultures around probably more a management style, so how you manage people and manage things. And leadership is all about growing, helping those to grow that you work with or that you interact with, so that they become leaders themselves. So it's not taking the credit for everything. And it was interesting because there's a really nice quote by Gustav Nossel that I really like, and that's community leadership is the courage, creativity and capacity to inspire participation, development and sustainability for strong communities. And that's, I guess that's that difference around community leadership as opposed to leadership. It's doing something good in your community.
Which rings Rob's bells. You should see him. He's dancing. It's a frightening thought.
Rob.
No, it excites me, and I think more so now when I look at things and I just see a clear void in good leadership across our situation at the moment. There's been little pockets of it, and you touched on that before, but I think across the board it is generally appalling, and we want to encourage more people to do what you're encouraging them to do, and that's get out and polish up skills and make a difference. That's the secret to what you're saying, is make a difference to your community, because I don't know that we've got enough doing that.
That's right, Rob. And now more than ever we need to do that, and that's why we need people to support our programs. We need government to continue to support our programs, because we've gone through bushfires, we've got drought, we've got in some areas in Australia flood, and now we've got COVID-19. And our people, and we've got a collective alumni of over 4,000, they can hit the ground running. They are proactive in their communities. We should be drawing on them to help with the recovery on any of these things. In fact, we are, our Gippsland program is actively involved in the recovery from the bushfires that occurred over the summer of 1920. So, it's a good example of why we need to continue to invest in community leadership and the development of those and supporting our programs.
And whilst that's really important in places in metropolitan areas, I think it's even more important that regionally, rurally. And, I think that's why I'm really keen to support as much as we can. A couple of things we need to touch on before we let you go, because we are coming up to the 11 o'clock weather, which is, we can't move from that. First of all, you're talking about sponsors, partners, supporters. How can businesses, organisations, well, let's cut to the chase, financially support you? How does that work? How do they get in touch with you guys to be able to do that?
Yeah, look, certainly drop us an email at ask@rla.org.au. Get in touch with us. We can organise sponsorship packages that meet the needs of the organisations and ourselves. Certainly support. As I said before, we could look at sponsorship through scholarships, through supporting program days that are run, through directly supporting the programs. So, drop us a line and we can certainly have a conversation. Happy to Zoom meet while we're in lockdown, and when we're allowed to catch up, I'm always up for a coffee.
Is she ever? There's one massive opportunity there that's some serious dollars involved, and so we're not just talking about, flick us $500 here and there. These are some serious sponsorships we're talking about, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said before, we always have a gap of at least about $6,000 per participant, and we put anywhere between 20 and 30 people through each program. So it's around about 240 a year that are going through our programs. So, we need to make sure that we continue to invest in them. We could not charge a $12,000 participation fee, and that's simply because the audiences that we have coming into our programs, are from rural, regional, remote areas. They don't have the backing of really big organisations to fund some of those programs if we were a private organisation. And you have to remember we're all not-for-profits, so it's all about giving back to the community, and that's our driving force. So.
And for those of you who have been clamouring for a pen, it's not that hard. That email address, ask@rlaregionalleadershipaustralia.com.au.
No,
not a difficult one at all.
.org.au.
Well picked up, Neil Butler.
ask@rla.org.au. And with a minute to go before we have to say goodbye, Kat, rumour reaches me that there's going to be a podcast being launched very soon for Regional Leadership Australia. I believe it's going to be called the Regional Leadership Podcast. So obviously a creative team came up with that name. Talk to us about that a bit.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're hoping to actually record our first episode next week, and we will be encouraging certainly all of our alumni to get involved. So that's about sharing the stories of our alumni, not only about their journey through the participation through the programs, but what they do afterwards. And I'm really excited about that because it gives people an opportunity to understand the towns and regions that our alumni are coming from, and then what they go on and do post the program. So I'm really excited about that. Neil and I are working on it together, and
well, that's just blown the rumour out of the water, hasn't it?
Well done to you both. That is it is a good project because it's a vital project. As I said, it's really been highlighted now. So good luck to you and Neil for starting it off, and success to both of you.
Thank you. And if I can add a little plug on there, we are looking for a sponsorship for the podcast. So if anyone out there is interested, again, use that email, ask@rla.org.au.
And it'll be available in all good podcast stores and probably one or two shonky ones by the end of next week. I am very confident in saying that.
Thank you, Kat, so much. Lovely to have you aboard.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Kat. Chat soon.
Okay, bye.